In Exodus chapter 34, Yahuwah proclaims his name and attributes and reveals his law. This is the second set. Moses hews 2 tables of stone. He goes up into Mount Sinai for 40 days. Yahuwah proclaims his name and attributes and reveals his law. He makes another covenant with Israel. The skin of Moses' face shines, and he wears a veil. And it begins. Chapter 34, verse 1. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Hew the 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning unto Mount Sinai, and present thyself there to me in the top of the mount. And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed before that mount. And he hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning and went up to Mount Sinai, as Yahuwah had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tables of stone. And Yahuwah descended in the cloud and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah passed by before him, and proclaimed Yahuwah Elohim, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children unto the 3rd and to the 4th generation. And Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And he said, If now I have found grace in thy sight, O Yahuwah, let my Elohim, I pray thee, go among us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of Yahuwah, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God. For Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a-whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a-whoring after their gods. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep 7 days. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, in the time of the month of Abib, capital A-B-I-B, for in the month Abib thou camest out from Egypt. All that opened the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty. 6 days thou shalt work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. Thrice in the year shall all your men, children, appear before Yahuwah Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before thee, and enlarge thy borders. Neither shall any man desire thy land when thou shalt go up to appear before Yahuwah thy Elohim thrice in the year. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left unto the morning. The first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring unto the house of Yahuwah thy Elohim. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Write down these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel. And he was there with Yahuwah 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water, and he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. And it came to pass, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses was not, that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moses talked with them. And afterward all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that Yahuwah had spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And till Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. And when Moses went in before Yahuwah to speak with him, he took the veil off, until he came out. And he came out and spake unto the children of Israel that which he was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses shone, face shone. I'm repeating. And that the skin of Moses' face shone, and Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to talk with him. That is the reading of Exodus chapter 34. Reading from Brown Bible Commentary with Jamieson Fausset, capital F-A-U-S-S-E-T, for chapter 34, The Tables Are Renewed. This will help us to understand what is actually going on. Number 1, the like unto the first, God having been reconciled to repentant Israel through the earnest intercession, the successful mediation of Moses, means were to be taken for the restoration of the broken covenant. Intimation was given, however, in a most intelligible and expressive manner, that the favor was to be restored with some memento of the rupture, for at the former time God himself had provided the materials as well as written upon them. Now Moses was to prepare the stone tables, and God was only to retrace the characters originally inscribed for the use and guidance of the people God commands Moses to hew 2 tables of stone like the former, wherein he promises to write. Exodus 34, verse 1. Moses goes with these tables up to the mount. Exodus 34, verse 4. God descends in a cloud. Exodus 24, verse 5. He proclaims his name. Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7. Moses worships. Exodus 34, verses 10 through 12. Bids them beware of molten gods. Exodus 34, 13 through 17. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. Exodus 34, verse 18. To rest on the Sabbath day. Exodus 34, verse 21. Other laws. Exodus 34, verses 22 through 26. Moses wrote these words. Exodus 34, verse 27. The time of Moses' abode on the mount. Exodus 34, verse 28. Moses' face shining. Exodus 34, verse 29. Is covered. Exodus 34, verses 33 through 35. He acquaints the people with what the Lord told him. Exodus 34, verses 31 and 32. The first tables were made immediately by God, who of his own mere grace and good pleasure and without man's merit or contrivance entered into covenant with Abraham and his seed. These tables must be made by Moses partly in token of God's displeasure for their sin, and partly to signify that though the covenant of grace was first made without man's care and counsel, yet it should not be renewed but by man's repentance. And as the tables of stone signified the hardness of their hearts, so the hewing of them by Moses might signify the circumcision and plowing up of their hearts, that they might be fit for the receiving of God's mercies and the performance of their duties. The words that were in the first tables to show God's reception of Israel into his favor in their former state, and that the law and covenant of God was neither abolished nor changed by their sin. This is another commentary on Exodus 34. It's a commentary, Ellicot's commentary for English readers, preparations for a renewal of the covenant. Exodus 34, 1 through 4. Before the covenant could be formally reestablished, before Israel could be replaced in the position forfeited by the idolatry of the golden calf, it was necessary that the conditions on which God consented to establish his covenant with them should be set forth afresh. Moses had asked for the return of God's favor, but had said nothing of these conditions. It is God who insists on them. Hew thee 2 tables. The moral law must be delivered afresh, delivered in its completeness, exactly as at the first. Exodus 34, verse 1. And even the ceremonial law must be reimposed in its main items. Exodus 34, verses 12 through 26. Or no return to favor is possible. Hence, Moses is summoned once more to the top of Sinai, where the law is to be delivered afresh to him, and is ordered to bring with him tables of stone like the former ones to receive their written contents from God's hand. Number 1, hew thee 2 tables. Something is always lost by sin, even when it is forgiven. The first tables were the work of God, Exodus 32, verse 16. The second were hewed by the hand of Moses, of stone, literally of stones, hewed, i.e., out of 2 separate stones, which could not be said of the first tables, since none knew how God had fashioned them. I will write, it is quite clear, though some have maintained the contrary, that the second tables equally with the first were inscribed with the finger of God. Compare Deuteronomy 4, verse 13, Deuteronomy 10, verse 2, Deuteronomy 10, verse 4. It is also quite clear that exactly the same words were written on each. Matthew Henry's concise commentary on Exodus 34, 1 through 4. When God made man in his own image, the moral law was written in his heart by the finger of God without outward means. But since the covenant then made with man was broken, the Lord has used the ministry of men, both in writing the law in the scriptures and in writing it in the heart. When God was reconciled to the Israelites, he ordered the tables to be renewed and wrote his law in them. Even under the gospel of peace by Christ, the moral law continues to bind believers. Though Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, yet not from the commands of it. The first and the best evidence of the pardon of sin and peace with God is the writing the law in the heart.